Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are exploring a seriously fascinating, intensely psychological, and kind of mystical topic: the moon in the eighth house. Our source text lays out 10 very specific predictions for this astrological placement, and it takes us on a pretty deep dive into, well, the shadows of the soul. So let's jump right into it.
Let me ask you this. Do you ever feel the unspoken weight of hidden emotions before a single word is even uttered? Like, do you ever walk up to a friend and just immediately know they're upset, even though they've got this big, fake smile plastered on their face? If you have your moon in the eighth house, this isn't just a random occurrence. It's likely a defining reality of your everyday life. According to the source material we're looking at, you'll often sense people's hidden emotions way before they actually decide to speak up. It's this profound, absolutely undeniable sensitivity, and it perfectly kicks off our exploration today. Okay, let's dive into this with phase one, the unseen emotional antenna. So people with this placement, they don't just observe the world around them. They act like an invisible emotional sponge. Basically, absorbing energy means you're unconsciously taking on other people's emotional weight, which, as you might guess, leads to some pretty unexplained and sudden mood changes. Just picture this, right? You're having a fantastic morning. You're feeling great. You walk into a room. Maybe it's a meeting at work or just a casual family get-together. Nothing is explicitly wrong, nobody is arguing, but boom, suddenly you feel this massive, heavy shift in your mood. You start feeling anxious or totally drained out of nowhere. And the crazy part is, that feeling isn't even yours. Understanding this dynamic is absolutely essential for your own emotional peace. Honestly, recognizing this trait is the very first critical step toward protecting your own emotional borders.
But how does all this sensitivity play out when you get really close to someone? Well, that brings us logically to phase two, cycles of intense connection.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it shows the extreme pendulum swing that literally defines these one-on-one relationships. On one side, you've got this intense bonding. We're talking a desire for absolute emotional merging with another person, a deeply profound, almost overwhelming connection. But on the exact opposite side, that very intensity triggers a completely necessary, drastic cycle of emotional withdrawal. It's wild. You might find yourself deeply enmeshed and completely inseparable from a partner or a best friend one week, and then you just need complete isolated withdrawal the next week just to recalibrate your overloaded senses.
And because of that extreme pendulum swing, sudden emotional shifts in your relationships will strongly affect your mental peace. These massive fluctuations, going from super intense bonding to total withdrawal, they aren't just quirky little personality traits. No, they are critical, volatile factors that can directly destabilize your inner tranquility. It is incredibly important that you recognize these relationship dynamics for what they are. When those sudden shifts happen, knowing that it's a predicted pattern allows you to just take a step back, take a deep breath, and actually protect your mental peace instead of, spiraling into total panic.
Now, as we move a bit deeper into this explainer, we have to deal with the heavier, somewhat darker trials of this life cycle. This is phase three, surviving the crucible.
There is a genuine emotional gravity to this part of the journey. As the source states, secrets in family or close relationships may surface unexpectedly in your life. What this means is that you might be the one who has to deal with the sudden shock of familial revelations. Hidden truths, old skeletons in the closet, buried histories, they all have this uncanny, unique way of finding the light for those with this moon placement. Navigating that sudden exposure, especially when it comes from the people closest to you, requires an immense amount of grace and really deep inner strength. And this unavoidable exposure of secrets often triggers a pretty painful reality. You are likely to go through deep emotional transformations after betrayal or loss. I really want to pause and be empathetic here. Because, wow, this is incredibly tough. But listen, this is not pain just for the sake of pain. When you experience the crushing weight of a betrayal or some profound, sweeping loss, it literally forces your soul into a deep emotional transformation. It's a highly painful yet entirely unavoidable step in the evolution of this lunar placement. It's like a crucible that burns away whatever isn't authentic, forcing you to confront the absolute core of who you really are. But hey, the story absolutely does not end in the ashes of that crucible. We are shifting gears now, moving from the pain of the breakdown into phase four, building unbreakable resilience. And this brilliantly illustrates how that armor is forged through a very specific process. First, you face the inner breakdown. Then comes a dedicated period of healing and self-study, which ultimately leads to step three, conscious emotional resilience. Notice how resilience grows only after repeated inner breakdowns and rebuilds? It isn't just some instant gift you're magically handed at birth. It's a necessary cyclical procedure. You go through the breakdown, you totally dedicate yourself to healing, and then you rise up vastly more resilient than you ever were before.
So, what are the actual tools you need for that healing phase? Well, our source outlines a very specific healing toolkit. You might find yourself naturally drawn towards psychology, or to various healing practices, or maybe even occult and esoteric subjects, all to gain a true emotional understanding of what you've been through. Plus, because deep trust issues can easily develop from those past betrayals we just talked about, you have to actively practice building conscious emotional safety. Countering deep trust issues really requires proactive work. Leaning into psychology or esoteric subjects actually gives you the precise mental framework you need to consciously build strong walls of safety around your deeply sensitive core.
And through all of this hard work comes an absolutely phenomenal payoff. You may experience powerful intuition during crisis situations or emotional lows. This is the ultimate reward. By surviving those emotional lows, by navigating the betrayals, and by learning exactly how to manage the absorption of foreign energies, you end up forging a remarkably sharpened, fiercely protective intuition. When a crisis hits, while everyone else around you is totally panicking and losing their minds, your intuition locks in. It becomes this laser-focused superpower that guides you perfectly through the dark.
So, as we wrap up our explainer today, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to really ponder on. How will you use your powerful intuition during your next crisis? You now have the complete map of your emotional landscape, right? From absorbing unseen energy to surviving the crucible, all the way to building unbreakable resilience. The next time the pressure rises, you are fully prepared to harness this psychological mastery. Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep learning, keep leaning into that amazing intuition, and I'll see you in the next one.